welcome back to the podcast. You are listening to Let It Out with me. I'm your host, Katie Dalebout, and on this week's podcast, I have journalist and author Kayleen Schaefer. You guys, can't get enough of her. I read her book, her first book, Text Me When You Get Home, recently, and have you ever had one of those experiences where you're reading a book and you're sold after the intro, and then you keep reading and it just gets better and better and you really don't want it to end? That was my experience with Kayleen's book. I was rationing it. I found myself weirdly saving it and not wanting to finish it because I didn't want it to be over, but I had to finish it because I was interviewing her and I wanted to basically geek out over sections of the book that really resonated with me and ask her about the writing process. And anyway, she's a fascinating person. So if you haven't read her book, maybe read it first. It's kind of a memoir-esque situation. So there's not a ton of spoilers in this, but just read the book anyway. You can listen to this first and it will make you want to read it. You could read the book first and this will really just scratch your itch to know even more about the process and the behind the scenes of what went into the book. I love this book so much. I'm not really talking about it too much in this intro because you're going to hear a lot about it, but basically it's an ode to female friendship, and I laughed, I cried, and I love this conversation almost as much as I love the book, maybe as much. Kayleen's a journalist and obviously the author of Text Me When You Get Home, and she's written for Vanity Fair, the New York Times, the New Yorker, Vogue, and she's been all over. You'll hear all about her career and her life as a whole, her tips for writing, creativity. She's a delight, and I want to get to that episode as quickly as possible. But first, just a couple quick announcements. I am giving a workshop in Greenpoint. If you are in New York, if you're in Brooklyn, if you're in Manhattan, if you're in any borough, you should come. It's going to be about cathartic writing, writing for anxiety, relief, and just journaling and creative writing, and it should be a really great time. I'm excited to go there. It's this very cool space called Maha Rose, and I'm excited to hang out there, much less be doing an event there. I'm also doing something at the Alchemist Kitchen in July. Info for that will be at the website, and I'm emceeing the Good Fest in Philly on August 11th, and the whole reason why I told you about these events is because I'm giving away a ticket to the Good Fest. So tomorrow, if you're listening to this, the day it comes out, Thursday the 7th, that contest is happening, and you just have to basically comment on this Instagram photo. The details will be there, but I would love to give away a ticket to a listener. That would be really cool. And I'd love to see everyone there. We're definitely going to do a meetup again this year. I spoke at the Good Fest last year and we did a meetup for listeners after, and it was really, really fun. So I'm going to do that as well this time. I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you at the end of this episode. Let's briefly talk about periods. Most of us get them. Sometimes we're excited when they come, sometimes we're very excited when they're over for the month, and many of us complain about periods and the cramps, the irritation, the bloating. It feels like we're destined to have these symptoms, but it turns out it might not just be your body to blame for these issues. A lot of times, the products that we use to manage our periods actually make these symptoms worse. That's why I'm excited to tell you guys about Flex. It's the first true period innovation product in over 80 years. That's right, I got on the phone with them, and the Flex people told me that they have not innovated in the category since the 1930s. Flex was designed to change your period. It's not a tampon, It's not a cup, it's actually a flexible disc that fits perfectly inside your body. It holds 5 tampons worth of fluid, so you're not constantly changing it out, even on your heaviest days. And unlike a menstrual cup, Flex discs are disposable and easy to change even when you're out on the go, so you can go from your office to a workout class to hanging out with your friends and everywhere in between. You only use about 2 discs a day, which makes it better for the environment. Everything is BPA free, no latex, no silicone, FDA registered, hypoallergenic. It's a pretty cool product, guys. I think you should check it out. Have the most comfortable period of your life. If you want to, go to IHateTampons.com and use the code LETITOUT to get an additional 30% off your first purchase. Again, that's the code LETITOUT, and go to the link in the show notes for 30% off your purchase. Thank you so much, Flex, for supporting this podcast. I have to tell you about one of my favorite brands, Care of Vitamins. You might already know and love them like I do, but if not, Care of is a monthly subscription vitamin service made from effective, quality ingredients personally tailored to your exact needs. Vitamins can fill the important gaps your body might be missing from its food or give you an extra boost where you need it. To figure out what supplements can help you feel your best, simply go to Care of's website and you take this super short, fun quiz. It asks you questions about your lifestyle, everything from how much you sleep to how much you poop, and from there, it recommends to you in minutes exactly what vitamins can help you feel your best. All the recommendations are based on clinical research and traditional medicine with input from doctors and nutritionists. I love the packaging and design of everything Care of makes. Your supplements will come to you in these beautiful, individually wrapped, personalized packets. I love them when I'm traveling and really just every day since I'm always on the go. And I think you will love them too. For 25% off your first month of personalized Care of vitamins, visit takecareof.com and enter the code Katie. Again, that's for 25% off your first month of personalized Care of vitamins. Visit takecareof.com and enter the code Katie. That's Katie, just in case you didn't know how to spell my name. I just genuinely loved the book so much, and I cried multiple times, but especially at the end, like that last paragraph really got me. And I was going to write it down here and read it during this, but I think I'm going to do it in the intro when I introduce you before this, because it was just so good.
Yeah. When I wrote that last paragraph, I was like, I think I nailed it.
Yeah.
And
nailed it.
I sent it to my editor because we'd been going back and forth about the conclusion a lot. It took a couple tries to get it right, and then I wrote that last paragraph, and I was like, and I sent it to her, and I was like, I feel like I landed a plane.
Oh yes.
She was like, yes, that's
feeling.
perfect. Yeah.
That is the best feeling.
It was great.
But okay, so before we get into your background, I've been really liking starting these episodes in the present and kind of working our way out from the middle. So what's been on your mind today? What have you been contemplating, realizing, learning? Maybe not just today, but in the past week or month.
Well, I mean, this was my first book, so I had, it sounds so ignorant to say it, but I had zero expectations. I really didn't. And so I got through the whirlwind of promoting it, and now I'm sort of because it's been out a few months, and I was what do I do, right?
When I moved to New York especially, I remember saying, I feel like I have a lot of acquaintances, but I don't have very many friends.
Yeah.
And your book really, makes that distinction, which I want to talk about. But I feel like that's an example of a bunch of acquaintances.
Acquaintances being no, I know this person. I can absolutely sell her my jewelry or my mascara or whatever. And that person is sort of oh, I thought we were kind of friends.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Very bizarre. Okay, so let's go back. Let's zoom the lens back.
Okay.
You grew up in Texas.
Yes.
What were you like as a kid? What did you want to be when you grow up? All of that.
I do think that I fell in love with writing early. My mom used to take me to camp at the library in the summers, and it was a creative writing class. One of the classes I took was a creative writing class, and you couldn't pull me out of there. I was just ripping out the short stories.
That's so cool.
So I loved it, and I wrote a really, it has to be I could read it now, I'm sure I would fall asleep. It has to be the most boring novel in the world, because it was called Journey on Roller Skates. Aww. And it was just me journeying through the country on my roller skates.
Oh my gosh, how old were you when you read that?
I don't know, like 8 maybe.
Oh my god.
Like, it truly would be criminally boring.
Oh, that's
so I do think I always wanted to be a writer.
What did your parents do? Were they creative?
My mom's a Spanish teacher and my dad was in the military, so not at all. And they continually are like, I don't know where you got this writing.
Yeah.
It's not genetic, guys. Like, I did have to work on it.
Yeah. So then when did you decide to move to New York and you started working in magazines? Did you always know you wanted to be in New York?
My aunt took me to New York for my high school graduation trip, which was amazing. And I was here, and she took me and my best friend at the time. And I remember turning to my best friend and being like, I'm going to live here someday. My best friend was like, I am not. But I meant it, and I did.
I did the same thing.
Did you really?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like some people have that moment. They just know that they'll probably either live here someday, or if they don't, they'll always wonder what it had been like.
What if I had gone?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something about being here, and I just knew that this is where I wanted to live.
Cool. So then you went to college in Texas?
Yeah, I went to college in Texas, about 3 hours from where I grew up.
Okay. And
I didn't study journalism, and it wasn't until my senior year, and I had an internship at Texas Monthly, which really truly used to be a wonderful literary magazine, but now it's lost a little bit of its luster. But when I was there, I was like, wow, this could be a career.
Cool.
Like, I could be a magazine writer. And I just remember that realization hitting me. And I could have either moved to New York right away, but instead I went to Northwestern to go to graduate school because I hadn't studied journalism.
What did you do undergrad?
English and government.
Okay.
So I did some writing, but it was nothing it wasn't journalism.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Northwestern and did that, and I felt more confident coming here and starting.
Yeah.
Even though you don't need a master's, anyone out there listening, you can go ahead and be a journalist.
So you were in Chicago, and then you moved to New York, and is that when you started at Details?
Yes.
Okay, so you're at Details magazine, and you were living in New York. What were those first couple of years like? You talk about it a little bit in your book.
Yeah.
But did you have friends here?
I had 2 women I knew from grad school who were here and working, and a friend from high school, but not really a lot. Mm-hmm. Sort of the situation you're describing too. Like, I knew people around New York, but no one I could really depend on.
Yeah.
And I really told myself, like, you're here to throw it all into work anyways.
Yeah.
And when I did make friends, like I talk about in the book, it was with men. Like, it was with guys on staff at Details, which was a men's magazine, or, my brother lived here, and then I became friends with his friends, and it was just this very, like, male-centric life for my first couple of years in New York.
And you were living with?
Mm-hmm. I lived with my brother and another male roommate.
So you were constantly around them. So this is kind of a great segue. So I got to know you. I feel like I've spent so much time with you in the last couple of days.
Too much.
No, not enough. I was actually just voice texting my boyfriend on the way over here, and I was like, this is so cool that this is, part of my job, or this is a thing that I do, the hobby, whatever, a thing that I do, that I get to find someone who made something that I love and was meaningful to me, and I get to go talk to them about it.
I think the same thing about journalism.
Super cool.
Like, I am often like, why am I the person sitting here with this person?
Yeah.
Like, this is an amazing job.
Yeah. So that's how I feel. So it's cool to be able to gush over this book that I have notes on.
I'm glad you thought there wasn't too much of me, because initially there was less, and my editor was like, we need more of you.
Wow, no, I loved it. I kept being like, more Kayleen, please. Like, I loved it. And I also loved how well researched it was, and how you vacillate so easily between personal narrative and interviews with friends, interviews with famous women, with historic women, with research. Like, I want to get into all of that, but it was just so good. But speaking of your relationships and your relationships with women, what was kind of in those first years, was there a moment, I think you kind of talk about it in the book, where this shifted? Can you talk about that?
I mean, it happened twofold. It happened when I started feeling like a little bit of a fraud. Like, I had been very much like, whatever the guys want to hear from me, whatever a guy would think, that's what I think too. I'm one of them.
Yeah, like and cool girl.
Yeah, girl. Exactly. And I never wanted to do anything that would upset that balance. I never wanted to be too feminine or too girly or too anti whatever they were into. Yeah. But I started to feel a little fraudulent doing that, particularly with story ideas at the magazine, where it would just be so skewed toward men are amazing. And I'm like, what about like the women's point of view on this? And even with my male friends, like there was a moment where one of the guys had a bachelor party and I wasn't invited. And I thought like that, like I understood it, but it also hurt me because I'd been the only woman with them a million nights, but then not to be invited just because it was symbolic seemed crappy to me. But it did hit me then, like, well, you're never going to be totally accepted by these guys. You're not actually a guy. And then the second part was just that I began to see that I had been wrong about pigeonholing women as these, glitter-obsessed, like, lovers of pink who I just wanted to avoid. Because I met really cool women who were doing a lot of things that I wanted to do and were personalities that I wanted to emulate and be around. And I just started to wish that I was friends with them versus being like, no, I can't. I'm one of the guys.
Yeah. So your book talks about several of your friendships, but the main best friend is your friend Ruthie. Yeah. Was that friendship and meeting her the kind of impetus of that shift?
Yeah, it was a big part of it because I worked with Ruthie at Details, and she was the assistant after me. But we just started to connect, and I wanted her to like me in a way that was unfamiliar to me, like wanting to impress another woman. But like when she'd like notice, like, oh, I like your earring, or like, oh, did you get your eyebrows shaved, or like whatever, like girly stuff that I did that I was keeping a secret because I was trying to be all cool. But then she would notice it, and I would appreciate it, and we just started to hang out, and I was like, I really like this person.
This is nice.
Yeah, this is a really nice friendship.
Yeah. So, okay, one thing that I have just self-serving questions about the book. So what does she think about the book and about what was like handing the book? Because Ruthie is such a central character in the book.
Totally.
Probably the most central character other than you.
Yeah.
What did you talk to her about the process, and what was it like to share the book with her once it was out?
Well, I initially, very first, when I said I'd like to do this, and I knew that I'd want to interview Ruthie, we were G-chatting, and I sent her a very tentative G-chat that was like, I'm probably going to want to interview you for the book. I can use a fake name, like just being really nervous about it. And she wrote back right away, and she was like, Kayleen, there's no identity that I'm more proud of than being your soulmate and best friend. So right away, like she was like, absolutely, I'm down, you can use me. But I did pull back on her in the first draft because, I didn't want to exploit our relationship, and I didn't want to put stuff about Ruthie out there that she didn't want, the world to know, or just or put my view of her out there. And then my editor said, I love Ruthie. Like, I want to see more Ruthie, and I absolutely understand why. Because whatever she says, like,
her quotes were
jumps.
So good.
Yeah. She's that way in real life too. Like, she opens her mouth, and everyone snaps to attention, because they're just like waiting to be amused, or like, or just have their minds blown. But and so they asked me to put more Ruthie in, and I said okay, and I did, and I liked the way it was coming together, of course, but then I wanted her to read it before, so Ruthie read it before it was published.
What was handing that draft off to her like? Were you nervous?
I was nervous on two levels.
Was she the first person to read it in general?
No, another good friend who is an editor read it for me, because she's just been editing. I went to grad school with her. She's been editing my stuff for a long time. And then Ruthie, though, Ruthie's such a talented writer herself, And so I was nervous to give it to her because I wanted her to like it, to think like, oh, you did a good book that features me heavily. I didn't want her to be like, I'm in this terrible book.
Right.
So but I was also, wanted to know that like she was okay with how I portrayed her and what I was feeling about our relationship and everything like that. So there were 2 levels of nervousness on that.
And then what was her response?
I mean, right away she read the intro and emailed me back right away and was like, I love it, or I fucking love it. I don't know what she said, actually. Off the top of my head, exactly. I haven't looked at it in a long time. But she was like, okay, I'm going to read this tonight when I get home. She wrote that right back, and then she sent another email immediately that was like, okay, I lied. I read the intro. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And then, she read the whole thing.
It's crazy. The intro kind of says, it doesn't say it all, but as soon as I read the intro, I was like, sold. Like, I get it. Like, it did exactly what an intro is supposed to accomplish. And then I was like, where is she? Because I'd heard you on some other I heard you on NPR, and I heard you on some other podcasts, so I was like, oh, that's everything I knew that this book would be, but I haven't even read the book yet. Yeah. And then I got the book, there's so much more. And it's just, I'm feeling I'm a little bit like buttering your bread too much, but I like really loved the book, so I'm gonna like try to reel it in. But, okay, I want to go back to how did you decide on the concept? When did it come to you? And specifically, let's start with that, and then we'll talk about the title.
The concept was based on 2 things. The first was me sitting there realizing like I'm not in high school. I talk about how I was a little bit of a mean girl. Not that I think that we should use that stereotype, but everyone understands what I mean. I was competitive. I was catty. I didn't treat my friends well. Yeah. And then I went through the phase where I was a guy's girl, and I thought I'm not those things anymore. Like the people I depend on for my well-being, for my everyday joy, are my female friends. So I thought, I'd like to write about that shift, which I didn't think was happening just for me. I thought it was happening in culture at large a little bit too. So I wanted to tackle, Broad City was big at that time when I wrote the proposal. #Squad was happening. And
this is
then,
like 2015?
Yeah, it is. It's 2015.
Okay.
And then the other part was I just wanted to give women permission to feel the way I did about my female friendships. And I knew they were feeling it, but nobody was saying, like, you're right, these relationships are as important as any with your parents, with your children, with your romantic partner, with your boss, like with whoever. These relationships are just as important as you think they are. Here's how we're all feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, okay, obviously the title, Text Me When You Get Home, is so great. And you talk about it in the intro, it's an invitation to talk more, just as much as telling your friends that you're safe.
That's my favorite part.
Can you talk about the title and like were you ever did you know the title right away when you made the proposal? Did it come later? How did that like idea spark in you?
It was not my title, full disclosure. It was my editor's title. I titled the proposal BFF. Okay. Which is fine.
This is better.
Gets the point across,
Yeah.
But it doesn't have that emotional resonance.
Yeah.
But even when my editor, Maya, at Dutton, she said, I love this book, I want to buy it, I want to call it Text Me When You Get Home, I was sort of like...
Was that in the intro, that line? Because you write about that line in the intro.
Yeah. No. In the proposal, no. It wasn't in there at all. And I wasn't totally sold on the title because I just didn't know, like, I didn't want people to think it was purely about safety. I didn't want people to think like, ooh, it's about digital friendship or anything. Like, I just wasn't sure. And so I kept asking everyone that I was interviewing in the early days, just like, what do you think? Do you like my title? Do you like my editor's title? How do you feel about this? And one of my friends who finally made me realize how great this title was, she goes, I like the editor's title. It's emotional. And then I got it. Then I was like, you're right. Like, yes, women say this about safety. Text me when you get home, check off, you're safe, you're in your bed. But they mean, like, text me whenever. Like, I'm always here for you. I've got you, no matter if you're in front of me in the parking lot or, you are miles away in your apartment by yourself feeling lonely. I'm here. Yeah. And so when I understood that, then I could write the intro, and then it really brought more emotional heft to the book.
Yeah. It's interesting that you said that, because I found the book after I already heard you speaking about the book, so I knew what the concept was. But now that I hear you say that, there's a chance that I could have thought it was about digital friendship.
Sure.
But I think that it has so much emotion that I would have been drawn to it because of the title, no matter what. Yeah. Because that there's something about that line that I love too much. Okay, so you touched on this a little bit about how female friendships they were becoming more important to you in your own life, which spawned the concept for your book. And the book is, essentially all of these beautiful love stories that are romantic yet platonic. And, you ask why friendship as an institution isn't afforded the same benefits and privileges as marriage. Can you talk a bit about that and what change, policy-wise you think? Do you see that happening? Do you did so much research for this book.
It's that having actual policy changes is really nascent. Like that's, it's on the horizon a little bit. Like there are some attorneys working on this, and maybe eventually, we'll get someone suing a hospital because her friend wasn't allowed in, or someone fighting to have her friend give her health insurance benefits, or some way that legalizes this relationship. I don't know. I think that's a long way away. I don't think it should be. There's no reason for it.
Bigger fish to fry. And
I don't. It's just sort of whoever you depend on, and I think anyone should be able to depend on whoever they want to. But I just don't know that our society, which is so tilted toward the marriage model, is really going to do that. And, what I was just trying to do really was do it not to make this case, not for legal ties, but even more underneath, to start underneath that and just make it for social ties and just how we talk about friendships. So we have to start there. And I think that the conversation is really more or less there.
Policy-wise, we kind of touched on it, but then what about, you talk about this in the book, and this was one of the parts that really struck me about culturally, how we talk about marriage to how we talk about our friends and people, just parents and generations especially, but just people in general. I think you quoted in the book something like a post of someone's engagement gets so many likes, and then someone talking about their job or talking about like any other thing, it's just like, okay, right. And then it's just, I haven't gotten that out of my mind since I read that. And just, I feel like I'm at an age where this is happening, but I'm just seeing, I have a wedding next weekend and I have a wedding the following weekend, 2 in a row. Like I don't know if I'm going to wear the same dress or not.
But, you can.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I give you permission.
But anyway, it's interesting because I feel like I've had milestones in my life that are just really different than a lot of my peers, but again, don't get the same recognition. But if I talk about my boyfriend, it's like that's all people want to talk about.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about that and just like, I don't know, I just want to kind of hear your voice on it. It was all in the book. But.
We're tilted so much to that relationship still. A woman I interviewed for the book, it's sort of similar to what you were saying. She'd gone to a friend's wedding and she hooked up with one of the groomsmen. And her friend texted her to be like, the bride, a couple weeks later was like, hey, have you heard from whatever the groomsman's name? And she was just sort of like, no. Like, that's not important. Like, why aren't you texting me to ask me about my job or my roommate or, like, my friendships or, like, whatever, anything. But that was what she wanted to know. Like, she only wants to know about a relationship in her life if that person was male and was going to propose to her.
That part was so fascinating to me because I, like, having worked in a corporate job, I felt like I was with people for a really long time. I was single. I had been in a long relationship, and then I didn't have a relationship, and I had to be at these dinners or these just like meetings with people and with bosses, and all of them were either in a long-term relationship or married except me, and I had nothing to talk about. Like no one knew. And I felt like I couldn't hang because no one wanted to ask me about anything other than...
Right, you were outside of their comfort zone.
Yeah, it was really, really strange. And then I started dating, and I remember this is so weird, but my boss at the time, who I was very close with, told me to relate to, you know, her boss, like our bigger boss. She was like, just, you know, tell her about your dating life, honestly. Really? Like, she'll love that. And I did it. I was like, it was like the only way I could connect with her. And I didn't have to like talk about work. But I was like, this is so bizarre. Yeah. Like, I didn't really realize how bizarre it was until I read in your book that, like, what a weird society that we live in.
You know, it's so interesting because that's absolutely true. It absolutely happens. Like, you want to talk about a guy, or you say you're dating someone, or whatever. You want to share, like, how your boyfriend is, like, screwing up or whatever. People are all in. But I did find in writing this, the feedback that I've gotten is that many women are like, thank you. I'm so glad we're talking about this too. Yeah. Like, I say it in the book, but there's not only one love story in our lives. And I think women want to talk about this one too. And we should be talking about it because we've talked about our relationships a lot. Yes. They're still going to be important, but still.
Yes. I mean, as I read this book, the emotions that I had kind of went from, you know, feeling so in love with my friends and just wanting to pause and call them. Yeah. And then also just really questioning society and being like, this is crazy. And in so many ways I didn't even realize it was happening. So your book is helping shift that culturally.
That's amazing, really. Yeah. And it is still, it's so funny, it's still there. Even like when my editor was editing the book, she wanted to know, I talk about a breakup, and she wanted to know, like, well, what happened with the guy? And I was like, that is not the point.
I liked that wasn't in there.
It's not focused on this. Like, this is a choice that this is not the story
I thought that was really cool. Yeah, I was so happy that, because I was kind of wondering, I was like, how is she going to land this plane? Like, will she be like, and I got married, or and it's this, or and, you know, I didn't know, and I'm so happy that, you know, spoiler alert.
It was on purpose. I just was like, that's not the story. That's a different story.
No. Yeah, that was really cool. Something else that I wrote down, early on in the book, you quoted Jemima Kirk. This goes back to the cool girl, and kind of your story a bit, where you were talking about how you were a guy's girl, and that was where you were most comfortable until that shifted. And she said a line that, again, was kind of an aha moment for me, where she said, you know, when someone says, I'm a guy's girl, it isn't true. No one will understand you like a woman can. I loved that part so much, identified with it so much, and I think it leads in well to, you know, you interviewed so many people for this book, you have so many cultural touch points in this book, but one of them is with Esther Perel, the relationships expert, famous lady, and I'd heard this before, but it really related here to Jemima's quote of how putting all that pressure on your your romantic relationship to be your business partner and your best friend and your financial advisor and your, you know, and your sexual partner, like all in one person, is actually really unhealthy for all of those things. And anyway, I just related to that so much. Can you talk about that and how, you know, what was the research process kind of like for that?
I mean, I knew about her work, I think, before I started too, and I wanted to take the somewhat controversial stand that we should stop calling our romantic partners our best friends.
Yeah.
It's in most of the vows. I bet you hear it at least once in your 2 wedding stretch.
Yes, I will text you.
and it's just, he doesn't have to be that. You can have a best friend, and you can have a romantic partner, and they can be different people. I'm not saying you guys shouldn't be friends. Like, you should absolutely like each other. But exactly what you said, like, he just doesn't have to be everything. And I think, like, I don't totally understand why that shift happened. Like, why we wanted to give men even more.
Yeah.
It's like, well, let's just take this away from our women friends, and now he's my best friend too.
Yeah, it's interesting because, and I would love to talk this out with you too. Ever since I was a kid, I've had, and this goes to the best friend concept, which you talk about, and you quote the Mindy Project with Mindy saying, like, it's a tier, which I love, but I would always kind of have one person at a time that I would get really close with. And it was almost out of, and this is definitely carried over to being an adult, where I can have a couple of friends, but there's one person I tell all of the things to, because out of time, out of proximity, out of just like comfort, sometimes it's hard to go there with a lot of people, or even a couple, and I just do that with one. And I found myself doing that with my boyfriend just because I would talk to him the most. And I realized even like very recently, like after reading your book too, of that's not how I want it to be. Like I almost kind of want to unmesh that to really fill these other roles. And I found myself calling my best friend more and having these conversations with her first and kind of processing it with someone who maybe understands me better or understands me differently in a way that he can't. And I don't know, that was just really, really helpful. I think it's good to like all of this just to kind of talk these things out, you know?
I think women need all the support they can get, and that means different people will support you in different ways, and there's nothing wrong with having, you know, a million friends to go to, or just one friend you always go to, and then, you know, a different support system, like maybe your boss or something. But I just think that there's a danger in any way you put everything on one person. Like even if that is a friend, that friend might be like, okay, I can't handle all this.
Diversify, just like you would with like investing.
Exactly.
Emotionally diversifying.
Diversification.
Well, going back to Jemima's quote about no one understands you like women do, I was curious, do you still have male friendships? Do you still kind of the when Harry met Sally like question, like do you feel like you can be close with your male friends as you can be with Ruthie and your female friendships?
I do. I totally still have guy friends, and this book wasn't meant to exclude men. And I spent a lot of time during the initial stages of this being like, I'm not saying relationships with guys are bad. I'm saying our friendships with women are equal to those. So of course I do. But I have found, and other women I interviewed echoed this, that there's some feeling when you're with a group of women or when you're with another woman, there's like, it's a sense of safety, it's a sense of security, there's empathy. I mean, it feels just more
cozy.
Yes, exactly. Like at risk of, I don't mean to sound cheesy, and I don't think it is cheesy because I think it's there. And I think women know it's there. And it's not a knock on our friendships with guys. It's just a different vibe. You know, there's just a different feeling between friends when it's a guy too. I 100% agree and relate. There were so many parts in the book that I related to and have, you know, been talking about. Many of them I've already shared. But was there anything that people are picking up on and talking about and relating to in this book most, or anything that surprised you since it's been out for a couple months? I love that people love Ruthie. That was not a surprise. I don't know. I mean, I'm overwhelmed by how the whole book has been received.
Let's talk about that.
It didn't occur to me. I mean, I hoped people would read it, but it just didn't occur to me that it would start a conversation and that I would get feedback from women, which I'm getting on Instagram and emails on Twitter. So you know, just by sitting here talking to you, just the fact that women really do want to talk about this. And I had a hint with the women I interviewed. Because we would keep talking and they'd be like, okay, we're done. And then they'd keep talking. Like when I talked to Judy Bloom, she kept being like, okay, I've got to go. I've told you everything that I know about female friendship. Like, I got to go. And then she would talk for 45 more minutes. Wow. And so it was like women just, the floodgates opened and they seemed to be saying, like, I'm so glad we're finally talking about this. And so that has surprised me a little bit.
I want to talk
in a really good way.
Yeah, of course. I want to talk about models for female friendship and not having them in our mothers, and how you talk about how many mothers of earlier generations think female friends would take away from kids, but now as an adult it makes you feel closer to your mom to hear about her friends. Can you talk about that?
Well, I mean, my situation is my situation, obviously. Like, I never intended to say that, you know, women our age didn't watch their mothers have friendships.
Right.
But for many women who grew up in the 50s, or who came of age in the 50s, their fidelity was to their husbands and their children, and that was who they focused on, and their friends were either non-existent or very much a side endeavor. And so that was my experience. My mom did that. She hid her friendships from me, or she just didn't devote time to them because she was so focused on me and my dad. And so that was my experience. My mom did that. She hid her friendships from me, or she just didn't devote time to them because she was so focused on me and my dad. And so that was my experience. My mom did that. She didn't devote time to them because she was so focused on me and my dad. And so that was my experience. My mom did that. She hid her friendships from me, or she just didn't devote time to them because she was so focused on me and my dad. And so that was my experience. My mom did that. She hid her friendships from me, or she just didn't devote time to them because she was so focused on me and my dad. And so that was my experience. My mom did that. She hid her friendships from me, or she just didn't devote time to them because she was so focused on me and my dad. And so that was my experience. My mom did that. She hid her friendships from me, or she just didn't devote time to them because she was so focused on me and my dad. And so that was my experience. My mom did that. She hid her friendships from me, or she just didn't devote time to And so now that she has evolved or let that go, because I'm grown too and she's older, and to watch her making friends is really cool. Like, she went to cooking class last night with 2 of her friends, and they made like a 5-course Italian meal.
Wow.
That's so great. Like,
So
that's
great.
Wonderful. Like,
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you have that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been really cool for me to see that too.
Yeah, I related to that part a lot. Similar.
Was your
to
mom like that?
Yeah, my mom's one of 6, so she has, and all of the kids still live in the small town I grew up in. So she has her sisters, and that was kind of the only model of friendship. She has like kind of one friend from high school, but it wasn't a priority, you know. And even when my parents divorced, it wasn't a priority. She has her family, but it makes me, I think I kind of, the emphasis, and even in our conversation, was more on romantic relationships, because I think that was what she valued and what she saw valued.
Right.
And it's interesting for sure.
Yeah, and that's what made her happy, and she just wants you to be happy too.
Yeah.
You know, I never think that it's a negative thing that our moms want this.
Not at all.
But it is just a different model, and women stay single longer now. Like, that is a big part of this shift. You know, we don't marry right out of high school or college. You know, there are many years when you rely on your friends. Yeah. And to stop doing that when you get married doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, totally. I think, you know, your mom also, like Ruthie, is a major character in the book.
She is.
Were you nervous to have her read it? What was her reaction to the book?
No, my mom, I mean, she's you can put whatever you want about me. She's very easygoing. I mean, she's sort of hard to interview because she doesn't have a great memory. She's not very quotable. So we would talk, and then she would call that friend that we were talking about. Like, she ended up calling her roommate in her early 20s, and which was kind of cool because then they reconnected.
Yeah.
Or she called the woman she used to walk with when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
So that was neat that they reconnected.
That's really cool.
Yeah, but she never cared what I. She doesn't care what I write about.
What does she think of this success and all of your success?
I mean, she loves it. Yeah, but she'd be proud of me no matter what.
You talk about the concept of Mean Girls, which you mentioned earlier, and your friendships as a kid, which I also related to so much.
Really?
And the thing, I wrote down one quote from your book in particular when you said this line. You said, "I was walking around from one circle of girls to the next looking for one who would let me stand there." And
so
like, even just saying
pathetic.
It makes me want to cry though. Like, it's so funny. Sometimes I remember like where I was when I read things, and like I know exactly where I was when I read that, and that was my experience as well. Can you talk about your middle school relationships and what they were like and how they impacted how you engaged in female friendships as an adult?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough. I didn't understand why these girls didn't want to talk to me. Like, I didn't understand what I did or what was wrong with who I was. And I just thought, like, oh, well, that's how you have to be with your friends. You have to shut them out, or you have to be competitive with them, or you can't tell them why you're not talking to them. Just don't talk to them. You know? I was fully schooled in the ways of subterfuge and competing with your friends.
Yeah, it's so sad. I remember this book really asks you to kind of subconsciously I started thinking about my middle school friendships and my high school friendships. And
Where'd
going
you grow up?
In Michigan.
Okay.
So I remembered, and I hadn't remembered this since, like, I hadn't thought about this in years until I read the book, and I remember being at recess and I had a lip gloss, like, so I don't know who gave it to me. I had some lip gloss, and I was like trying to buy friends. I was like, I'll let you use the lip gloss if I can swing with you. And it was so sad and pathetic, but it was like I unlocked that, and like how painful that was.
I know. One of my friends in middle school, she used to have like wintergreen certs, and she would buy like big packs of them and give them out, same kind of thing. And I'd just be like, you don't want to do that. Like, stop doing that. But still, I was like, gosh, she's going to be cooler than me because of those certs.
It's crazy. It's so sad. And yeah, it made me feel less alone to hear about all of this. And it's funny. So I wrote down in my notes as I was reading, you talk about reconnecting with someone who was your, cool girl of middle school and high school.
Tarwater.
And I wrote down in my notes because I was kind of reading and also preparing for this, and so I was wondering about Renee. And like, oh, I wonder if at the beginning when you first mentioned her as a kid, I was like, oh, I wonder if she's going to read this. I wonder where is she now? Like, that was what I wrote down to ask you. And then I read along further that you actually met up with her recently and got together with her. And I just want to hear more, basically. Did you keep in, what was that like for you? Were you nervous? Yeah.
I can't email Renee Tarwater. She doesn't want to talk to me. I mean, and that showed, like, how ridiculous is that? We are both grown women. And she was like, I'll help you with anything. Like, let's meet. Or we talked on the phone first. It was a great conversation. And we were both happened to be traveling to LA the next week. And I'm like, let's meet up. Let's do it. And we did.
Glad that worked out.
And it was so great. It was great sitting there and talking to her. And we fully acknowledged that had we been at a high school reunion and we were talking, people would be like, why are they talking? But in the restaurant we were sitting at, we looked like we had been friends for years. We looked like we would fit together. Like, no one would know that history at all.
So bizarre.
And then we have stayed in touch, which has been amazing. She came to the Dallas book launch.
Oh, wow.
It was wonderful.
Did you like introduce her and say?
Oh my God, my dad is a little loud, and he was like, she came into the restaurant where we were hanging out afterwards. He was like, mean girl.
Oh, God.
And Renee was like, it's okay, I've been called worse. Like, she's that kind of personality where it just all rolls off her. She's really wonderful, and she charmed my whole family.
Wow.
Everyone was so glad she was there.
Did your parents remember her from?
My mom did.
Yeah,
my dad. My friends were the same to my dad.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! Wow, that's so funny. That was maybe my favorite part to read. I was just like, how is this going to play out? It was very suspenseful. It was so well written.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah,
I mean, it was really just a wonderful thing that happened in my life because of the book. Because I wanted to write about it, but also just because Renee was so willing to talk to me and to be part of it. And I sent the book, like with Ruthie, I sent Renee the section to read, to be like, are you okay with this? Like, because like she's been so generous with her time and just like being so honest with me about how her high school experience was. And she was totally fine with it, except she wanted me to take out the part where she slept with her high school boyfriend. And her friend had then gone to prom with him, and she was so mad at her friend. She didn't talk to her for a year. She wanted me to change it to kiss because she has 2 young sons. And she was like, well, what if they read it someday? And I was like, well, Renee, like, it's not as impactful as if you just made out with the guy once. Like, it's not the same thing. And she was like, it's fine. Okay, great.
Oh, that's so funny.
So like she
that's
was
also
really
like a
cool
funny
about
postscript
the whole
to get that kind of speaks to her.
To how we are friends now.
Yeah.
And we text all the time. And when I go to Dallas, I see her. So
wow,
it's
that's
really
so
great.
cool that the book allowed for that.
Yeah, it really is.
You talk about the long distance relationship that you were in, that was kind of a romantic relationship that you talk about in this, and how people were expecting you to move or leave New York, leave the city that you lived in, and just some of the comments that you got and reactions that you were getting, I related to so much. I live in Michigan, I live in New York, my boyfriend's in Michigan.
Okay.
And just people constantly asking, we kind of already talked about this, I guess, about your romantic relationships, not your friendships and other things. I want to hear about, can you talk about what it was like to write about that time in your life and go back writing about it? Like, how did that feel?
I mean, it was interesting because I don't know at the time how much I was conscious of what I was doing, how much I had grown up with this long-held idea that we talked about before, that my adult life began when I married.
Yeah.
Like, that was just what I thought the track was. Every grown lady in my hometown was married. And so I just thought that was going to be me. And then when it wasn't, when I made the choice that it wasn't going to, I was just sort of going what I wanted to do. I wanted to focus on my career, and I wanted to focus on my friendships and just focus on myself. But I think at the time I was just doing what I wanted, and I conscious of how big a shift that was in the way that I was evolving and growing up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, was it hard to go back and write about that time, or did it feel cathartic?
Sure. I don't know if hard to write about it is the right... Maybe. I feel like I'm stumbling over this answer, but it was the first chapter I wrote, and I think that having the realization, but when I had the realization, I actually felt like, oh, this was right. What I did in retrospect, thinking about it years later, I still feel like it was the right thing.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say it was hard. Like, I think it would have been hard if I was reliving it and thinking like, shoot, I did the wrong thing.
Totally.
But I felt it was right, and putting it in this perspective of having years like past it helped me see it better and see where it fit in my life, and I felt like it was the right path for me.
Did you stay in touch with that person? Yeah, that word. It's like so weird.
And that's the thing. Like, yes, I did. And he read it and he was fine with it, and he said, I was like, did I get it right? And he was like, oh yeah, almost too right. Or I think he said like too right.
Yeah, maybe it was, like, I wonder what it was like for him.
Yeah. So I never want to put anything out in the world that shocks someone, honestly. Like, that's not what I'm, that's not what I'm a writer for.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I wanted him to see it too, but like, obviously, like, he didn't love reliving it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Another thing that stuck with me about the book was how people aren't prioritizing friendships, and it's the first thing to go when we get busy. And, for people wanting deeper relationships in their lives, like you have with Ruthie, what advice or tips do you have for creating and maintaining deep female friendships?
I mean, you really do have to put time into it the same way you do when you're dating. It's about, like, at first, like, you want to present the best side of yourself, and you want to invite them to do something, or be like, no, I'm game for this if they invite you to do something. And so it is about being there, and it's about telling them you're there for them, but also when they ask you too about prioritizing them. I mean, it's a tricky balance in any relationship, but yeah, you just want to be like, no, I'm really here.
Yeah.
Like, a bunch of women told me a crisis often brings this out. I don't know that that's true in mine and Ruthie's case, but they realized that their friendships could be as essential as any other relationship. Like, one woman told me about, like, she couldn't pay rent, and a friend said, oh, move in with me rent free. Or, if someone's in the hospital and you end up being the person who is deciphering, their insurance forms or whatever. Like, I do think that happens a lot. It takes that for you to realize how indispensable a friendship can be.
Yeah.
But I think you can also just get there, on your own too. Just a slower build.
Yeah, and it's intuitive, just like other relationships, it's not...
Yeah, it's like, this is someone I want in my life for a long time. I'm going to act that way.
Yeah, because I was thinking about that question. I was like, I think you have your proximity friends, like, when you were younger, like, I remember having, like, my science class friend, and I had my, like, friend from this club that I was in, and I had my neighbor, and then it's kind of the same thing as adult. You have, like, a work friend, and you might have another friend, but then also I think for when it comes to maintaining friends, like, those ones you don't have to maintain because you're going to see them. But when friendships become long distance, or just, in New York, I feel like everyone can kind of be long distance based on where they live and how we see each other. But I think there's something about frequency, and I've been trying, when I moved here, and I was saying that when everyone felt like acquaintances, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to put effort into this, and I'm going to try to pick a couple, because I can't have so many. And my grandma told me once that you should be able to count your good friends on one hand, which I think is, like, kind of true.
I like that, Grandma. I do.
Yeah, like, you can have maybe 10 people, but you're probably not going to be super close with 10 people.
Yeah.
5 is probably, like, the limit. So I kind of did that. I was like, okay, these are the people I like best and I want to be around most. So I'm going to try to, like, frequently see them so it doesn't like fizzle out.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was kind of something that helped me.
Absolutely. I schedule dates with friends.
Yeah.
Like if I haven't seen someone, I'm, when are we gonna hang out?
Yeah. Yeah.
I want that. I need that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that kind of cements the friendship. And I start to feel a little bit anxious, like, oh, haven't seen them in a while. Like this is not great for the friendship. Friendships can sustain that more depending on like how long they've been or how strong they are or whatever. But yeah, I thought those things were just kind of interesting. And another thing, gosh, there's so much I want to talk about in this. The history of female friendships was so fascinating in the book, and so much research that you did there. What was the writing process like? What was the research process like? You know, we already talked about using your mother and people in your life and interviewing them, and Ruthie, of course, and your grandmother, but also you mentioned Judy Blume, and you talked about Julia Child and her relationship. What was the process of all this research? Did you have a structure in coming up with the manuscript?
The history chapter was the hardest for me to write because it seemed a little removed, because I mean, I don't enter the story really until the next chapter when we talk about Mean Girls. So it seemed a little removed from that. And also just, it's really like a lot of stuff happened in you know, the decades and decades.
Yeah.
Female friendship is not a new concept. It has existed forever. And so I was going all the way back to the Middle Ages and early modern times. And, you know, it's hard to decipher what happened back then because women weren't allowed to tell their own stories. Men wrote them. And at best, a woman maybe was talking to the guy while he was writing it down. Like, at worst, the guy was just writing whatever he felt like writing. So it's hard to know what women's lives were like back then. So, but the experts I talked to were so generous with their time. And, you know, when they told me, like, no, women weren't allowed to call themselves friends. Like, they didn't have the moral center to be considered friends. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
That's crazy. So, like, that's where we started. We started with, like, don't even use the word friend.
Wow.
So we started at a pretty low place. So, I mean, I'm glad we're where we are now.
Yeah. I wish they could read your book. You talk also about so culturally female friendships are becoming more central in plots, and you mentioned Insecure and Parks and Rec, and then when you mentioned Big Little Lies, I was like, wow, I feel like I just watched that. And
I loved it. I was obsessed.
Oh, me too. I'm so excited for the new season. But I feel like that just came out. I mean, it's been a year now, but it just hit me like how quickly your book has been written and come out. Was fast. Did you add some of that in? How long did it take you to write the whole book?
I was writing the book. I was just writing mostly, maybe filling in some of the reporting when Big Little Lies was on, and I was just obsessed with the show. I'd read the book before, but I think the show took the bonds between the women up even more, and then, you know, to have the actresses in real life going around talking about their friendship, I was like, this absolutely has to be in the book. So that those additions were definitely in the final drafts.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite portrayals of a female friendship, or ones that you relate to the most?
I think Broad City is a very realistic portrayal of life in New York. Obviously, their hijinks are ridiculous, but just as far as, like, they just walk around with nothing to do, like we often do. I love that their friendship is the center of the show. There's nothing contrived that brought them together. There's not, like, they have love interests, but they are the central couple you care about. And I just love that's really and truly what the show is about. But I mean, I love so many friendships on so many shows, and Orange is the New Black is not in the book very much, but, like, I really love that show and the bonds between the women there, and those are real friendships. Obviously they're in prison, so it's different, but you know, that's a show about female friendship for sure. Have
you, since the book came out, seen any other portrayals that you're like, oh, I wish I could put this in the book?
Two Dope Queens isn't fiction, but, you know, they're on stage doing their stand-up together, and they're often riffing on their friendship or just talking about something they did, and their friendship is very much on display, so I love that. I like the friendship between the Marvelous Miss Maisel, between the star and her agent. I think that's a great friendship, and it comes in the aftermath of her separation from her husband, and she's leaning on this new person who is a female friend. So I think that's a really great show that is centered around a friendship too.
Do you think for the rest of your life, whenever you see a cultural, you'll be like, wish I could do a postscript?
I mean, I just hope we see more and more because, I mean, everyone when I was doing this was like, oh, well, Bridesmaids. And it's like, yes, Bridesmaids, great. But what's the next Bridesmaids? And then Girls Trip came out while I was writing also. And I'm like, this is incredible. I mean, I saw the movie like 3 times in the theater, and I absolutely had to put that in. And that came while I was writing some of the final drafts too. And so, then you had Girls Trip, and now like maybe Oceans, or the all-female Oceans. Is it 8? I wanted to say 8, and I didn't know if that was right.
I don't get why it's 8, because I keep thinking it should be higher than all the others.
That's what I think too. I think it is 8.
I think it is too.
Hopefully that's an amazing movie about women bonding. Like,
you kind of look like Sandra Bullock. Do you get that a lot?
No, that's really nice of you. Thank you. This is a podcast, so no one will know.
No, it's true. It's beautiful. Well, I cut you off. Were you going to say something else about?
No, I hope we see more and more. Like, the story of the male protagonist or the story of the rom-com has been told and told and told. And not that I don't love those stories. I do. But we have room for these stories too.
Well, speaking of movie, I kept thinking, is it okay to ask this? This maybe is like, I hope this is okay to ask, and maybe you can't even talk about this, but all I kept thinking is, I can't wait to see the movie of this.
I mean, you and me both. I don't know, I've had some interest, but...
Sandra Bullock can play you, who's going to play Ruthie.
Sure. Oh my god, I know. Ruthie was like, I will sell my life rights. Yeah, I don't know.
Has there been interest?
There has been interest.
Cool.
There has. But I have 0 definitive. And my agent was like, it's a long shot, Kayleen. So, but I mean, I'm an optimist.
The entire time, I just get, I feel like I've read so many books that were movies that, this is by far so much better than any of these books, but it felt like Candace Bushnell's Sex in the City before, like how there were interviews, and I could just see it. And then, did you ever read that book? Like, He's Just Not That Into You. And
I've seen the movie. I've never read the book,
but I know just like, if those
were not a nonfiction book,
right? I was like, if those were made into movies, like this is so good. I would just love to see the movie of this.
I would love for you to tell everyone in Hollywood that. Yeah,
great.
I mean, I would love to see it too.
If you're listening,
if you guys are listening. But I think Text Me When You Get Home is a great movie title.
Yes,
right.
I can just see it. Like will you do the podcast again when the movie comes out and you're on tour for that?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. I just saw the whole thing. I was like walking around New York City listening to the book, and I was like, yep, this is gonna be a movie. Probably Reese Witherspoon's production company. Like, that's what's happening with that.
That would be a dream.
Okay, this has been a dream to talk about this book that I loved.
It's been really fun talking to you too.
Can we wrap up with some quickfire questions? So as a writer, what advice do you have for writers? Do you have any routines and rituals when you sit down to write? How do you structure your day?
The first thing I would say is you just have to write. Like, I get up early. I start writing at 7 just so I can start and just get words down on page before I start checking social media or looking at the news or checking my emails or whatever. Because you just have to write. And that's the lamest advice ever, but it's absolutely true.
So you're starting at 7. Are you getting dressed at that point? Are you making coffee? Or are you
make coffee? Absolutely. But no, I try to just make coffee and then stumble to my computer, because then I'm better about not self-editing because I'm in a little bit of a fog. So I'm just like, okay, go. Right. So and I love that time. That's my favorite writing time.
How many hours do you do that, and then do you get what's a typical day like?
So I will start writing at 7, and then I usually shower and get ready for the day at 9. And then I go on a walk because I often find that when I go on that walk, what I've been working on that morning, I'll have a realization, or I'll know how to fix something, or I know what I want to do for the rest of the day as far as what I'm working on. So I'll go get more coffee on my walk, come back, have breakfast, and keep writing. And I'll do that as long as I need to. I have word counts depending on what I'm working on. So when I was late on the book, I had like 1,000 words to write a day, if not maybe some days 1,200, which is too many for me. Like some writers can just jam it out, but that was too many for me. But I had to do it. I didn't really have a choice because they were like, "Where's the book? We have to put it out near Galentine's Day." And I was like, "Okay." So until I hit my word count, like I can't stop writing.
Was that I mean, obviously for the book that wasn't a self-imposed, but now do you have certain projects that you're working on, but do you have to self-impose some of those word counts?
Yes. Well, it depends. Like if I start, I'm not sure exactly. I may start writing something without another book deal. I may just start working on it and then I will be doing it, just self-imposed. But, you know, if I'm working on another book, then usually I'll know when they expect it. I'm good with deadlines. Or I'm better with deadlines. Yeah. So I like a deadline.
What about at the end of the day? What are kind of your evening routines, like the last few things you do to wind down and shut down? How do you end your day?
I try to read an actual book and not my phone, although, like, sometimes it's just bad. Sometimes I'll have my book and then I'll have the phone on top of it. And I'm like, come on, put your phone down. So I try to read an actual book. Other than that, like, no, I don't have a huge wind down routine at all. I'm just usually like, okay, gotta go to sleep now. Yeah.
Let's talk about that relationship with, we always talk about this on the podcast, our relationship with social media and your phone and technology in general. How do you handle that, especially as a writer, but just as a woman in the world?
Yeah.
And how do you like have a good relationship with that?
I mean, currently my phone gives me a lot of joy because women are, you know, putting up pictures of the book and saying how much they loved it or how excited they are they finally got it from the library, or it's just like, I love it. Like all of these messages that I get are positive. But I have been on the receiving end. I used to work for Yahoo Style, and the Yahoo readers are not kind. So I've been on the receiving end of some horrible comments where it was like, I just want to throw my phone, you know, on the freeway. So yeah, but either, like, no matter what, positive or negative, if you look at it too much, it's too much for me. Like I get really numb to it.
Do you have boundaries with your phone of like putting it away at a certain time, or like,
to help me get up, I put it away from the bed.
I do that too.
I have to stand up.
I do that too.
So that's one trick for sure. But I mean, I would like to move it from the bedroom entirely, but then I'd have to get an alarm clock. Yeah. Which I don't. Why am I going to do that?
Right. Yeah, it's a tricky thing. I mean, I used to have the ability to do a lot of things without my phone that I don't now.
Right.
So.
It's true because, I mean, I would be like tracking steps or like, you know, just for my own enjoyment because I really need to know how many steps I did that day. Like, I don't, but I want to at this point. Yeah, I like it.
I know.
Having it.
I know. And just like, maps and just so many things. Yelp, like, there's just so much. Yeah, it's fascinating. And as a creative person, just like how that affects us. The writer Dani Shapiro, do you know her? She talks about how like she used to be a smoker, and as being a writer, she used to actually take a break that was a break when she'd do a cigarette break. Right. And then now she like looks at her phone, she's like, but it's not a break.
It's not a break because you're still in that world.
Yeah.
There was a piece yesterday on New York Mag about how this writer was like, I used to waste time on the internet and now I don't know how to waste time.
Yes, I just saw that today.
Like, what do I do?
Yeah, it's like you can always be productive.
He was like, that's lame.
Yeah.
And it's very true. Like, I used to be able to waste time quite pleasantly on my phone.
Yeah.
And now it just feels like the same workspace that I'm in.
Yeah, it feels like a computer.
My computer,
Yeah, it's so fascinating. What about creativity? Like, what's your greatest lesson on creativity? What do you do when you feel uninspired? You mentioned going on a walk.
I mean, going on a walk it sounds so simple, but it really helps me figure stuff out. And I don't even have to be thinking about the project, and all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, no, that's what I have to do. And then on my phone, write a note.
Yeah.
That is how I fix that. So that helps. It really getting up from the screen helps me a lot. And then sometimes if I'm stuck in front of the computer trying to get out my word count, I'll like write in all caps. Like that helps me.
Really?
Yeah. It really does.
What do you mean? So you just will write...
Like, whatever section I'm working on or trying to figure out, and it's just not coming, and I'm just sitting there in front of the blank screen. Like, I'll start writing in all caps, and it sort of maybe tricks me into being like, this doesn't count. You're writing in all caps.
Wow.
And then I just... out with the words.
Wow,
so
that's fascinating. Did you just make that up?
I did.
That's so fascinating. I always think of all caps as yelling.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't turn anything in
no,
caps,
I know,
but it just sort of...
I'm going to try that.
I mean, yeah, let me know if it works for you.
Yeah.
It works for me.
That's so fascinating.
In
I love
emergency,
that.
write in all caps.
I love that. So you have a lot on your plate, obviously promoting the book, talking about the book, just being a person in the world, and like having to be a freelancer, and also, having to be creative and write. And how do you handle that, basically? How do you handle stress? Do you meditate? Do you go to therapy? You go on walks? Do you you rely on your friendships? Like, how are we doing the self-care here?
Yeah. I do go on walks, like I said. And sometimes, truly, Ruthie will text me and be like, hey, you want to go on a walk? And I'm like, yes, absolutely.
You guys live...
Yeah, she lives like a block away.
Oh,
and, sometimes we do it with white wine, like travelers of white wine. Sometimes we don't. But it's always just a really, like, wonderful wind down for the day. And then, yeah, I made it this far in New York without having a therapist, but then last year I got one for the first time, and I really liked it. I was like, how have I gone this long without having it? This is great. And I just talk nonstop to everyone about like, what is your therapist like? What do you do here? Have you ever done this? And everyone was like, and everyone had been through therapy, and they were always like, I can't believe like this is new to you. And I'm like, I don't know, it is. It's great. And I really like her. And
how did you find her? How do you find
friend.
a good therapist? Okay.
Yeah, my friend. She was like, this woman's amazing. She changed my life.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll ask you for her name.
I mean, she's good. She sees a lot of writers in a way that I didn't know. Like, I was fine with it. I didn't care. But, like, I realized, like, oh, my God, she saw this writer. She saw this. A friend and I realized we were going to her, and we didn't know.
Wow.
Because I was talking about her, and I was like, oh, yeah, she's Italian. And she was like, oh, my God, is she? And I was like, yes. It was crazy.
It's like that movie Prime. Did you ever see that movie? It has Uma Thurman and Meryl
Streep. But it's like a horror, right? No. Wait, then never mind.
It's the concept. This is a spoiler alert of a 2010 film, but if you haven't seen it, pause. But basically, Meryl Streep's the therapist, and Uma Thurman is going to her, and she's been with her for like 10 years, and she's going through a divorce, and then she starts dating Meryl Streep's son, who's 10 years younger than her, and it's like drama ensues.
Got it.
But it's it's a delight. It's funny.
Yeah.
I loved it when I was younger. It reminded me of that. Okay, so these ones will actually be a bit quicker.
Okay.
So what's the best thing you've eaten in the last week?
Truly don't know why I'm drawing a blank. I had very good pasta last night with ricotta and vodka sauce and wilted spinach that I made, and it was delicious.
That sounds delicious.
I love pasta.
Maybe not as good as what your mom was making in Texas, but probably close.
Yeah, but it's my attempt at cooking.
That sounds great.
Yeah, it was good.
Favorite part of your life right now?
That this is a different... I never expected to be in this position. I always wanted to write a book, and I had very many failed book ideas where people are like, that's not a book, like no one's gonna buy that. And just that this has happened and I got to do this, it's amazing.
Do you know what your next book idea is?
I'm working on a proposal, but it's not solid at all.
Will it be at all related to this concept?
Yeah, absolutely. Like,
cool.
This is what I want to what I want to do in general overall is just make people feel like, oh no, I'm in the right place too. Like my life we're good here, and that's what I want to do.
You're so good at that.
Thanks.
So I just bought, you wrote is it a short story?
Oh yeah, the Kindle single.
I feel horrible that I didn't get to read it before this. But can you talk about that a little bit? And
it's a really personal story. I would say it's a little more personal than Text Me, just because it's specifically about my brother and him kind of just walking away. Like he didn't want to be in the U.S. anymore, and so he went to Mexico, and my mom and I went to see if we could find him, and it's the story of that.
I'm really excited to read it.
Yeah.
I'm excited to read it. I am into whatever you write because you're not only is and I want to say that on the podcast too, like not only is the concept really great and relatable and needed, like we've addressed, like you're also a really great writer and distill it in such a great way, which is really cool.
That means a lot.
Yeah. I think we covered most of these. Greatest lesson on friendship, if you had to like put it in one line. Other than text me when you get home.
I think it's that our friendships are stronger and more malleable than we think they are. Mm-hmm. You know, this is definitely not one line, but people think friendships are disposable or you can walk away easily, and I don't think any two friends want that. I think that they can be repaired or adjusted. I think that they are stronger relationships than we give them credit for.
Oh, I love that. So good. What's your greatest lesson on entrepreneurship for being a freelancer?
God, I could talk about that a lot too. I think my biggest tip is to have a lot of things going at once. Don't put everything in one thing. Because if you have a lot of things going at once, one could be great and one could fail, but you'll still come out as a person who has, their livelihood going.
That is a good one for me right now. Yeah. I like that. Greatest lesson on romantic relationships?
My greatest lesson was that they're not everything. You don't have to put, they're not the only relationship you should look for.
So true. So good. Okay, greatest lesson or favorite New York moment, thoughts on living in New York? Like maybe favorite and least favorite?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I've been here for such a long time, but I can still walk down the street and like turn around and be like, the city takes my breath away. Like I love that I can still be inspired here every single day. God, I don't know. Like buying my own apartment was amazing. Like this place was empty, and I just remember running around this little L shape, being like, "Oh my god,
great apartment.
Oh my god, this is mine."
Yeah,
I live here. This is my own space. Like having my own space in this city made me feel like there was nothing else I could want in the world.
Yeah, that's so cool. Okay, this is a fun question. There's one of two. I'll let you choose which one we do. Desert Island or dinner party?
Oh, let's do dinner party.
Okay. So you're having a dinner party. You can invite 5 people. Who do you invite? What do you cook? And what do you hope that you talk about? And what do you hope doesn't come up that you don't want to talk about?
Let's see. So 5 people. Are they're real people or who are they?
Whatever, however you want to take it.
I mean, I don't know. Ruthie would come. I would probably have my mom there just because she would just enjoy it so much.
Maybe she could do some of her cooking class.
Yeah, exactly. Like I just would want her there for my incredible dinner party.
Yeah.
I kind of want Judy Blume to come.
Was she cool? Did you love talking to her?
I love talking to her. And then a side story, a writer friend was at her house in Key West, and she was like, "You're not going to believe this. Your book is in the middle of Judy Blume's coffee table." And I was like, "Send me a creep shot or I'm never talking to you again." And she sent me a picture.
That's
of it, and it was incredible.
That's so cool. So did you read her growing up?
Oh my gosh,
of course.
Yes. And Summer Sisters is like, I just love that book. Yeah.
That was really cool. It was really cool to hear the history around that and to hear about the movie, and that was really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the dinner.
Okay, so Judy Blume's coming. Ruthie and my mom are coming. I get 2 more people. I mean, I kind of want Michelle Obama to come. Can she come?
Yes.
She's so amazing.
Do you know anything about her friendships? Does she have a Gayle King or a Ruthie?
It's funny because Hillary Clinton talks a lot about her friendships.
Yeah, and that was in the book, which is great.
And I forgot. Yeah, I got to interview Linda Bloodworth Thompson, who's a longtime friend of hers. She was so generous with me. But Michelle Obama occasionally talks about her friends, but not so much. Yeah, not.
Yeah, maybe she needs your book.
Maybe she does. I should say.
That's good. She'll be at the dinner party.
Right, she'll be there.
Great.
So
maybe she can mingle.
I don't know. I've been listening to a lot of Cardi B. Can Cardi B come?
Yes,
too?
Of course.
That would be amazing. Or Adele.
Perfect. Great.
Cardi B or Adele.
They can both come.
Whoever RSVPs.
Yeah.
Whoever can make it. It'll
Great.
be good.
Great. And what are we eating?
Oh, I don't know what we're eating. Like lots of fresh fruit, lots of greens.
Great.
So much bread and cheese. Like
Great.
just an incredible amount of bread and cheese.
I'm thinking like a beautiful platter.
Oh, it's going to be gorgeous.
Yeah.
There's going to be platters.
Great.
Multiple
Great.
platters.
Great. Very
Healthy except
Instagrammable.
for all of the cheese.
Amazing. Perfect. And then what do you hope that this group talks about, and what do you hope you just don't feel like talking about?
I mean, I don't want to talk about the more serious problems with the Trump presidency. Like, I'm all for talking about the seamy parts of the Trump presidency. That's fine, but I don't want to talk about the more serious problems that give me agita in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, look, like, I love to talk about people's experience being women in this world, like that. We don't hear enough about that, and we're just starting to, and I love it. So, yeah. Let's talk about that.
Cool. Okay, so this podcast is called Let It Out.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like there was anything that you wish that I would have asked? Did I wring you dry for all of your wisdom? Anything that you never get to talk about that you wish you could talk about more?
You had great questions, and this was really fun.
Yeah, good.
And I wish you so much luck. I'm
Oh,
so
thank you so
excited to
much.
see this get bigger and bigger.
Oh my gosh, likewise. Well, I hope we stay in touch. The whole
Yeah.
time I was like, I want to be her friend. I want
can
to
be
be friends
friends.
with Ruthie. Like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is sort of weird, but since it's called Let It Out,
Yeah.
we always end with a sigh together. So
A sigh. Just a sigh. Okay.
like a breath. So
Okay.
I'll like count to 3 and we can do it.
Like in yoga.
Yeah, exactly. Like I got the idea because I was in yoga and someone was like, take a deep breath in and let it out. And I was like, oh, that's my podcast.
Right.
Okay, so ready? 1, 2, 3. Feels good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big yogi.
We did it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
That was a delight. Okay, that was my episode with Kayleen. If you haven't read her book, go get it immediately. If you have, I'm sure you especially love this episode. And text your friend. Text your friend maybe this episode. Maybe send it to them in an email. Maybe you want to Snapchat it to them. I don't know how you share information with your friends, but send this to them because I'm sure they would like it. And just, even if you don't send this to them, just send them a text and tell them that you love them. As I was reading this book, when I was done with this book, days after reading this book and recording this conversation, all I could think about was how grateful I am for the female friendships I have in my life. And they've changed and grown, and there have been people who've come into my life and left my life, and people that have stayed consistent, and I'm grateful for every single one of them. So shout out to all of my friends. If you're listening, I love you, and I'm gonna go text them now. So that brings me to the emoji for this week's episode. Oh, well, okay, I'll tell you the emoji in 1 second. First of all, the podcast is going on another break, you guys. I just need a moment. So I'll be back next week with a new episode, and then after that, taking a couple weeks off. You can catch up, you can check out some other podcasts. I'm not going to leave you hanging, but just wanted to know that's on the horizon. And okay, that's it. Now, on to this week's emoji. If you are still listening to me rambling at this point in the podcast, go leave a review on iTunes. I tricked you. That would be really cool and really helpful. And subscribing on your telephone actually is helpful as well with the algorithms, and sharing it, obviously. It helps me to grow the show so I can keep doing it because I love doing it and I want to do more of it. Now I actually will tell you the emoji, which is obvious. It's the 2 girls with a heart in between them. So tweet that at me, at Kayleen, to let us know that you're still listening. Comment it on our Instagrams, and we can have more of a discussion on what you guys thought of this episode. I want to know things you do with your best friends. What are you doing with your summer friends? What are you doing this summer with your friends is what I meant. But if you have summer friends, tell me about those as well. Like a summer crush, a summer friend? Sure, why not? All right, love you guys. Talk to you next week. Bye. Let's briefly talk about periods. Most of us get them. Sometimes we're excited when they come, sometimes we're very excited when they're over for the month, and many of us complain about periods and the cramps, the irritation, the bloating. It feels like we're destined to have these symptoms, but it turns out it might not just be your body to blame for these issues. A lot of times, the products that we use to manage our periods actually make these symptoms worse. That's why I'm excited to tell you guys about Flex. It's the first true period innovation product in over 80 years. That's right, I got on the phone with them, and the Flex people told me that they have not innovated in the category since the 1930s. Flex was designed to change your period. It's not a tampon, it's not a cup, it's actually a flexible disc that fits perfectly inside your body. It holds 5 tampons worth of fluid, so you're not constantly changing it out, even on your heaviest days. And unlike a menstrual cup, Flex discs are disposable and easy to change even when you're out on the go, so you can go from your office to a workout class to hanging out with your friends and everywhere in between. You only use about 2 discs a day, which makes it better for the environment. Everything is BPA free, no latex, no silicone, FDA registered, hypoallergenic. It's a pretty cool product, guys. I think you should check it out. Have the most comfortable period of your life. If you want to, go to IHateTampons.com and use the code LETITOUT to get an additional 30% off your first purchase. Again, that's the code LETITOUT, and go to the link in the show notes for 30% off your purchase. Thank you so much, Flex, for supporting this podcast. I have to tell you about one of my favorite brands, Care of Vitamins. You might already know and love them like I do, but if not, Care of is a monthly subscription vitamin service made from effective, quality ingredients personally tailored to your exact needs. Vitamins can fill the important gaps your body might be missing from its food or give you an extra boost where you need it. To figure out what supplements can help you feel your best, simply go to Care of's website and you take this super short, fun quiz. It asks you questions about your lifestyle, everything from how much you sleep to how much you poop, and from there, it recommends to you in minutes exactly what vitamins can help you feel your best. All the recommendations are based on clinical research and traditional medicine with input from doctors and nutritionists. I love the packaging and design of everything Care of makes. Your supplements will come to you in these beautiful, individually wrapped, personalized packets. I love them when I'm traveling and really just every day since I'm always on the go. And I think you will love them too. For 25% off your first month of personalized Care of vitamins, visit takecareof.com and enter the code Katie. Again, that's for 25% off your first month of personalized Care of vitamins. Visit takecareof.com and enter the code Katie. That's Katie, just in case you didn't know how to spell my name. The music you're hearing behind me now and all other original music in this episode is composed by Carolyn Pennypacker Riggs. The album art is by artist Zoe Harmon, and this podcast is produced and edited by Amanda Scharf and hosted by me, Katie Dalebout. Check out our website for show notes to everything mentioned.